Okay, welcome in. I'm going to be doing my preview for week 5 of the NFL season. So, the Thursday night matchup takes place in Los Angeles as we have the Rams, and they're playing host to the San Francisco 49ers. Just because the 49ers are all beat up and Brock Purdy has now been confirmed he's not going to be playing on Thursday, I'm going to give the edge to the Rams. I think they are a very talented team from top to bottom. They, in my opinion, could win the NFC West. I can make an argument for the Seahawks as well. They're a very good team. Not taking anything away from the 49ers, but I truly believe if they lose this game and say Purdy doesn't come back for week 6 or they don't get their bodies healthy by a certain time frame of the season, the 49ers could possibly be even third place in this division in the next couple of weeks. Now, I'm not hoping for that because I'm not a fan of any team of the NFC, but I'm just trying to be realistic. Like, they are a team that they got bumps and bruises and cuts and scars, you name it. They're in a world of pain, unfortunately. Now, had they had all their healthy bodies, I'd probably predict them to be the favorite for the NFC West because they did win the division 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, and then went on to the Super Bowl that same year. So they are a good team. But because they're so injury-plagued and there were some off-season moves of players leaving and trades and all that, it's hard for me to believe that they're going to be better than the Rams and the Seahawks. That's all I'm trying to say. So with that being said, like I said, I'm going to give the edge to the Los Angeles Rams. I do apologize. Before I continue, this is the first week of the bye week for the 2025 season. Once I'm done doing my previews, I'll scroll down to the bottom and I'll show you the 4 teams that have their bye week. So the next one is an inter-conference matchup between the Cleveland Browns and the Minnesota Vikings. I'll give the edge to the Vikings. Why not? I believe they should be the better team between the two of them. Now, granted, the Cleveland could possibly upset them. I mean, they beat the Packers, so they could possibly win against another NFC North team. Only time will tell, but if I had to make my prediction right now, which I am, I'll give the edge to Minnesota. Now, the next matchup to the right, it's an intriguing matchup because both these teams are underperforming. You have the Houston Texans sitting at 1-3. The Baltimore Ravens have the exact same record. Both of these teams, I would have predicted, should have been at this point and could possibly, but we'll see, win their respective divisions. They both won their respective divisions last year and the year before, so there was no reason why coming into 2025 that these two teams shouldn't have been as competitive as they were. Unfortunately, they both got off to rocky starts. Again, you could say injuries can play a factor into teams struggling. And I'll say this as a side note, if for some reason Lamar Jackson cannot play, Houston, you could say, could possibly go into Baltimore and pull off an upset. But I'm not done yet picking the Ravens. If the Ravens drop to 1-6, then I'll start betting against them. But when you got a 2-time NFL MVP in Lamar Jackson, who's a dual threat at quarterback, just like most quarterbacks are, and you got a running back in Derrick Henry, who should have had more carries last week, let's be honest, there's no reason why this team can't run over the Texans defense. Now, I'm not trying to disrespect the Texans defense, but it's hard when you have a quarterback and a running back that can play the RPO so perfect that you could have two guys going after the running back and then Lamar Jackson takes off for like a 15, 20-yard gain. Or vice versa. You got everyone going after Lamar Jackson thinking he has the ball, Henry has it, and then he can run up the middle or whatever it is. So they have, on paper, a very good team. They just haven't been able to pencil or put everything together all in one place. So I believe this is the week that the Ravens will start to get back to 500. They should, I'm not going to say improve to 2-3 because they're still technically a game below 500, but they should win this game. If they drop to 1-4, their chances of catching the Steelers, because if the Pittsburgh happens to win, then they're 3 games behind the Steelers in October. And again, there's still going to be plenty of football left, but the season goes by pretty damn quick. And if you start going on 2 or 3 game losing streaks, it's hard to go on 2 or 3 game winning streaks because at that point, other teams ahead of you in the standings are starting to pull away. So this is a very crucial game for both of these teams if they, want to stay in the hunt for not only a playoff spot, but they want to try play catch-up in their respective divisions. Another game where there's two 1-3 teams. This is an interconference matchup between the Carolina Panthers and the Miami Dolphins. I don't think I really have a dog in this one. I don't think there's one team that's proven to me that they can easily beat the other one. I think this will be a close game. It might come down to the fourth quarter when one team might start pulling away. But I don't see the Dolphins going into Carolina and running away with this. And I certainly don't see the Panthers running all over the Dolphins in this matchup. I think this will be a tight one. I think it'll be close. But it's hard for me to really... This is a coin flip, really. It's just two underachieving teams. We'll put it that way. So if I have to make a bet, maybe I'll say the Panthers at home. I mean, they do have one win, so they could possibly get two. All right, now we're off to Indianapolis as the Colts are 3-1, taking on the 1-3 Las Vegas Raiders. I'm giving the edge to the Indy in this one, just because I don't want the Raiders to win. That's as simple as that. I mean, Daniel Jones has proven that he is the better quarterback coming into this matchup, and I never would have said that Daniel Jones is a better quarterback than Geno Smith, ever. But Jones he's had a resurgence since he's joined Indy, and he's going to be their number one guy for sure for the rest of this season, unless he has an absolute SHIT game or he gets hurt. Like, Anthony Richardson is not going to see the field at all unless the Colts are blowing their opponent away, and he's just coming in for a couple of kneel downs or a couple of handoffs. So Indy's a very good team. They're very underrated, and they should get the victory against the Raiders. All right, we have the winless New Orleans Saints taking on the 1-3 New York Giants. I'm going to give the edge to the Giants in this one. I just don't like the Saints. They're not bad. I mean, they did put up a bit of a fight against the Bills. They did technically lose by 12 points, but I haven't seen enough out of them to make me believe that they're going to be successful this year. Like, I'm sure down the road at some point they will have a successful season, but because they have to deal with Tampa, who I believe should still win the NFC South, and they still got Atlanta, who's wishy-washy, and then they got the Panthers. So if New Orleans happens to win this one and say the Dolphins beat the Panthers, then obviously they'll be tied with Carolina for third place, you could say, in that division, or tied for last, either way. So there's no guarantee they're going to finish last in the NFC South, but as I said before, I don't see a scenario where the Saints are going to be that good this year. As for the Giants, they got a huge win against the Chargers last week, and if they can beat LA, there's no reason that they can't go into New Orleans and beat the Saints. So I will give credit when credit is due. I believe that Jackson Dart is the quarterback for the Giants moving forward. I'm pretty sure Russell Wilson is going to be cooking on the bench. He's not going to see much of the field unless, God forbid, Jackson Dart gets hurt or they happen to be blowing out their opponent. Then maybe Russ comes in for a couple of snaps. But you got to think, they still have Jameis Winston on the team as well. So something has to give with those three quarterbacks. There's no way the Giants are going to go the full 2025-26 season without considering trading one of those guys, if not both of those guys, to other teams. Because why did you bring those guys in? Just to sit? I don't think so. And I know Russ and I know Jameis, they both are competitive guys. They want to be on the field. They want to be the quarterback leading their team to a potential victory. So I just don't see a scenario where the Giants hold on to all three quarterbacks. And they're clearly not getting rid of Dart. They just drafted the kid. So at some point during this season, whether the Giants are successful or they're below 500, I can see them trading one of those two, if not both of those quarterbacks. Sorry about that. I had a phone call there for a second. So I'm hoping I didn't lose too much, or if anything. But yeah, I'm going to give the edge to the Giants in the matchup against the Saints. The next matchup takes place in New York as we have the Jets taking on the 1-2-1 Dallas Cowboys. I've said so many times that the Jets, I don't know what to say about them anymore. I've ranted about the Jets probably more than I've ranted about the Falcons, and that says a lot because I've ranted a lot about the Falcons. But the Jets, oh man, I don't know where you begin. Like, this team is just not that good. They did put up a bit of a fight against the Dolphins last week, but other than that, they're not a good team. And it's a shame to say that they have like decent players on their team. They brought in Justin Fields to be the man moving forward, since they obviously moved on from Aaron Rodgers. But he got hurt and he had a concussion. I'm pretty sure that was in week 3, if not mistaken. And he just hasn't performed that well. I don't really care who they have as their quarterback. They're just not a good team. And it's a shame, because this was supposed to be a team that was supposed to, get their ish together and finally be competitive again. It's been 14 years since they made the playoffs. That's the longest drought in the NFL. And it's looking like that drought's going to continue. So I feel like, I know I've said I felt bad for the Bengals in my last video because of what they have to go through and their injuries. But for the Jets, I couldn't imagine being a fan year in and year out, just seeing garbage in and garbage out. Like, there's no consistency with this team. Think about how many quarterbacks they've had. Think about how many coaches they've had. It's crazy, and I can't understand why who makes all of these decisions. It could be the GM, it could be the owner, it could be a bunch of things. I can't really tell, but it just blows my mind that this team has been so bad and they're not getting any better. I cannot figure this out. I just cannot figure this team out. And it doesn't make any sense. I just cannot understand why this team cannot be successful, why this team cannot find the right coach. They cannot find the right players. They cannot find anything right at all. And it just amazes me that the Jets fans have been putting up with this for so long. But I mean, as a fan, you can't really do anything about it. Maybe just start boycotting games, stop going, and then the team will understand they're not going to make any money. And then they can go from there. I never can understand why they can't win. The last time they had an above 500 season was back in 2015, 2016, when they should have made the playoffs as the 6th seed at the time, but the Steelers got in instead. That's the last time this team has had a successful above 500 season. Since then, it's been below 500. It's been quarterback after quarterback and head coach after head coach and player in and player out. And it doesn't matter who they draft, they're not the right person for that position. So I'm sorry, Jets fans. I'm giving the edge to the Cowboys, even though the Cowboys haven't been the best team. But because the Jets are such garbage, and I apologize, I'm not trying to take any jabs at you. Again, like I said at the start, I feel awful for Jet fans. I cannot figure out why this team is so bad. It just doesn't make any sense. And year after year, it's like, okay, we're done rebuilding. We want to contend. We don't want to be pretenders. We want to be contenders. But yet, year in and year out, they're 3rd and 4th in their division because, granted, you have the Bills, and the Bills are going to be on top of that division for years to come as long as Josh Allen is under center. The Patriots are doing better. And who would have thought that after New England lost Tom Brady in 2020, everyone probably thought, and even myself, thought the Patriots are going to be rock bottom. They're going to be in 4th place. So then that would have given teams like the Jets and the Dolphins more of an opportunity to be better. But yet, the Patriots have seemed to have found and figured everything out. They got a very good coach in Mike Vrabel, and they have Drake May as their quarterback. He is their quarterback moving forward. And they obviously won last week, so they're better. Like, they went through a rebuild in a matter of like 2 or 3 seasons. And now they're back to their winning ways. They're back to their Patriot ways. They did that in less time than it took the Jets to figure out what the hell they're doing. And that is terrible. That is bad. If you have a team in your division and they just lost probably one of the best quarterbacks ever, and you know they're not going to be good for a couple of years, and then you find out 4 or 5 years later they're back in it, like, that is just awful. That is terrible. And I'm sorry to go on this like 5-minute rant about the Jets, but I cannot understand how this team can be okay with being bad. All right, the next one takes place in Philly. We have the Eagles taking on the Denver Broncos. Now, I want to give my team, the Broncos, credit that they could possibly go into Philly and pull off an upset. But other than that week 4 victory over the Bengals, we haven't played that well. Now, maybe we finally figured our stuff out. Maybe Bo Nix will have a, better read of the field and stop throwing costly turnovers, especially late in the game. Maybe they finally found their running game. I mean, congratulations to J.K. Dobbins being the first Bronco since, I think it was Latavius Murray, if I'm not mistaken, back in 2022 for the Broncos. So it's been a long time since you had a 100-yard running back. So I'm glad we finally have a running back in J.K. Dobbins. Obviously, I love R.J. Harvey as well. I think he had like 50 rushing yards last week, and he had a passing touchdown as well. So that's a very good 1-2 combo when it comes to the run game. Now, if they can be more effective with that and give them the ball more, and they just don't run for 1 or 2 yards, if they can actually gain 3, 4, 5 yards per carry, then obviously kill the clock, let their defense rest, then yes, you could say they have a chance. For Philly, they haven't played the best football to start the season. They may have one good half and one bad half, or like 3 good quarters and 1 bad quarter. So it's not really been consistent from the coin flip to the end of the game where they've had really good offense or really good defense. Not taking anything away from the Eagles. There's a reason why they're still undefeated. A win's a win. That's pretty much all you got to look at it that way. But I'm giving the edge to Philly in this one. I want to say Denver can possibly go in and pull off a victory, but to go into Philly when we haven't had that much success in Philly, especially as of late, I just don't see a scenario where we come out a victor, which is a shame because had we beaten, I would have been okay had we beaten the Colts, or had we beaten, who else did we lose to? If we were 3-1 heading into this matchup, I'd be okay losing to Philly being 3-2. But the fact that if we lose this, we drop to 2-3, and then at that point, if the Chiefs happen to win, then they could be 3-2. Regardless of whether the Chargers win, they're still going to be above us. If the Raiders happen to pull off an upset and we still lose and we're tied with the Raiders for last place, there's a lot that can go wrong in just 1 week. So to say that the Broncos are desperate for a win would be an understatement, because this is come October, November, this is when teams start to separate themselves from the pack. You can tell who's going to be a contender, who's not. And if you go 1 week lose, 1 week win, and you do that win-loss, you're not helping yourself at all, because it was a team in the Broncos that had higher expectations heading into this season. I personally didn't have that, because I know there's a lot of good teams in the AFC, and I know that the Chargers and the Chiefs, they're like the 1-2 combo coming out of the AFC West to make the playoffs. So if the Broncos are going to make it, they have to be at worst the 7th seed, at best maybe the 6th seed. I just don't see them finishing ahead of the Chargers, especially since we lost to them. That's the other loss that hurt too. Had we won against the Chargers or the Colts, we could have been 3-1. And then, like I said, if we lost to Philly, at least we'd still be above 500, so there wouldn't be as much to panic. But if we lose this, which we possibly can, and drop to 2-3, and other teams are 3-1, 4-1, 3-2, then it's not going to look so good, because then now we got to hope that they lose just so we can win. And if you're looking at the score clock and you're more concerned about other teams winning, you're not doing your job. So that's all I got to say about that. I love my Broncos to death. They're going to be my team, but we just haven't been that consistent this season. So I'm hoping our defense can really step up against Philly. That's the only way we're going to come away with a victory. I just don't see Bo out-throwing Jalen Hurts, and I surely don't see him outrunning Jalen Hurts in that category as well. All right, the Arizona Cardinals are 2-2 on the season, taking on the 0-4 Tennessee Titans. I'll give the edge to Arizona because they have wins, and they didn't get shut out last week. So, yeah, Arizona, they should win. They should improve to 3-2, and they could be one of those dark horses in the NFC that could sneak into a playoff spot. I've said this from the very beginning, that there's 2 really good divisions in the NFC. That's the NFC West and the NFC North, and you could have 2 or 3 teams from each division respectively make the playoffs. I think the NFC East is more than likely just going to be a 1-team race. The NFC South, you could make an argument that 1, maybe 2 teams can sneak in, but for the NFC, the NFC West, but yeah, but for the NFC West, I just think that division's just so stacked. You got the Rams, you got the Seahawks. I've said this before; those are probably my top 2 picks to come out of that division. And just because the 49ers are hurting and they're reeling, they're likely going to finish third, maybe fourth. So the Cardinals could improve to third place and get out of that NFC West basement if they can get more victories and play better than they have the last couple of seasons. So there is high hopes and high expectations for the Cardinals to do better. Whether or not they do, it's up to them. All right, Seattle and Tampa Bay. This is probably going to be one of the biggest matchups of this weekend. Two really good teams. If Seattle's not on top of their division, they're probably tied for first with the Rams, and obviously Tampa Bay's first in their division. So you have two very competitive teams, two teams that I'm willing to bet will make the playoffs. Whether one finishes as a wild card or they both finish as division winners, it's up in the air at this point. But this is probably going to be one of the best games of week number 5. I'm going to give the edge to, I'll say Seattle. I think Tampa Bay can go into Seattle and get a victory, but there's something about Seattle and that 12th man that can make a huge difference and really impact the play of your opponent. So if Tampa happens to win, I wouldn't be surprised. Again, they are a very good team, but I'll give the edge to the home team in this matchup. All right, Cincinnati and the Detroit Lions, 2-2 and 3-1 respectively. I got no choice but to go with the Lions just because of the injury to Joe Burrow, and I'll probably say this 100 times more till the end of the season, that is a huge loss. It'd be different if they lost like a receiver or a tight end or whatever it is, but when you lose probably one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, you could say he's the best. He had a fantastic season last year, even though they missed out on the postseason. But without Joe Burrow, this team really doesn't have too much of an identity, and I think they're doomed to have a very long and painful season. So if you're a Bengals fan, I apologize. I can't imagine what grief that you're going through, but here's hoping you can squeak out a win. But if Detroit, they are a legitimate team of the NFC, especially the NFC North. So I'm going to give the edge to the Lions. The Los Angeles Chargers are taking on the Washington Commanders. This should be an interesting matchup. You have a 2-2 team in the Commanders taking on the 3-1 Los Angeles Chargers. Now, I'm sure the Chargers are a little upset after losing last week in New York. So I'm sure they have a bit of a chip on their shoulder. They don't want to go and lose 2 games in a row. Because if they lose 2 games in a row and say the Chiefs, if they are playing, happen to win, then they technically would be tied for first in that division. And if the Chargers want to try to, maintain a game or 2 lead on the Chiefs, they need this victory very, very badly. So just because of the desperation that the Chargers don't want to drop to 3 or don't want to go to 3-2 and have to worry about the Chiefs breathing down their neck, not that they aren't already, but they need this win. And especially after losing last week to the Giants, that was a winnable game. But unfortunately, they just weren't able to come away with the victory. And as for Washington, even if they drop to 2-3, it's not the end of the world. I'm not going to say this is going to be a sophomore jinx season or a sophomore season for the Commanders. There is high hope for this team, and I still have them pegged as the number 2 team in the NFC East. I still think they're better than the Cowboys, and I still think they're better than the Giants. Whether or not they can get back into the playoffs is another question. I have more faith in the Chargers winning than the Washington Commanders. That's all I'm saying. So even though I would love for all AFC West teams aside from Denver to lose, I have to be a little humble and I have to, put my pride aside. The Chargers are a very, very good team, coached by a very experienced coach in Jim Harbaugh, and I can't rave enough about Justin Herbert. He is a fantastic quarterback. The Sunday night matchup takes place in Buffalo as we have the 4-0 Bills, who are still undefeated, taking on the 2-2 New England Patriots. I'm going to give the edge to the Bills in this matchup because they seem like they are a team that's on a tear. They don't want to just win games. They want to just destroy their opponents in their paths. I'm sure if they had the opportunity to go perfect on this season, they surely could. There might be a couple of teams. I'm sure the Chiefs are in there, and maybe the Ravens, if they can, get back to being better than what they are, that could possibly put this team's winning streak on a halt. But if I had to bet who's going to win between the Patriots and the Bills, just because of how focused Josh Allen is and how determined he is to get this team to a Super Bowl, I guarantee his eyes are red. And he just wants to win every single game and prove every single critic wrong So even though the Patriots are good and Drake May is a very good quarterback, and the Patriots, I'm sure, will be successful going forward, maybe this season, but it's hard to say. At home, the Bills, I'm taking them all day. The last game takes place in Jacksonville, where we have the 3-1 Kansas City Chiefs taking on the 3-1 Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the 2-2 Kansas City Chiefs. Whew, this is tough. I want to predict that Jacksonville will win this game, but the Chiefs, man, there's something about this team. I mean, they've won 2 in a row. They seem to have finally found their stride. So as much as I want to pick the Jacksonville Jaguars to upset the Chiefs at home, and yes, I say upset even though they have a better record, I still think the Chiefs, they're probably bitter getting off to a bad start, so don't be surprised if they go on a bit of a run. So I got the Chiefs winning the Monday night matchup against the Jaguars. So the 4 teams that have their bye weeks are the Atlanta Falcons. They're currently sitting at 2-2. The Chicago Bears are also sitting at 2-2. The Green Bay Packers are sitting at 2-1-1. And the Pittsburgh Steelers get a much-needed rest. They are sitting at 3-1. So heading into week number 5, I think in my last video I said my overall record was 43-21. So I technically have about 20 games above 500, which I'm glad about. I'm just hoping I have a better record than 9-7, which I had the previous week. And I also pray that there's no more ties. I'm done with the ties. 1 tie was too many. All right, that's going to take care of this video. As always, if you're new to this channel and you like this type of content, feel free to hit the sub button. I'd be very grateful and very appreciative as well. Until next time, and as always, take care.